Ow! Need more power! Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another modern video, and today Derek has asked me to play with a Tifa deck that is looking to just get lethal with Tifa in one go. Now, there's a lot of pump spells here, and that's not, overly exciting or new or impressive. A lot of these are going to give approximately +4/+4, and then if you do something like play a land, you can double. Let's go a fetch land specifically. If Tifa gets +4/+4 and has 5 base power, landfall double to 10, fetch double to 20, and we're done. That's the game. This is the sort of thing that this deck is going to be trying to do. And to make sure that we assemble Tifa regularly, we have 2 different tutors for her. But there's actually a rather interesting piece of tech here. Idyllic Grange. Grange? Question mark? Which is an unimpressive land, but when we're in the realm of power doubling, this +1/+1 counter can be very, very real. We might need to be careful with how we are stacking triggers here to make sure that the +1/+1 counter resolves before any doubling effects, but this is pretty neat tech. To make this work, we do have to make sure that all of our fetches are white and can get the basic planes, which is not a problem here. And we are very, very, very heavy on fetch lands because fetch lands are so critical to how this deck works. This is 16 fetch lands with, honestly, not all that many fetchables. So we have 3 Temple Gardens, the Plains, the Surveil Land, the Grange, and the Dryad Arbor. And, that's it. We're done. Now, there are some cards in here that I think are a little bit questionable. So Derek wants to play Aether Vial conceptually to be able to put in Tifa at the end of turn and then have her crash in without running into sorcery speed removal. Think about your things like, say, Prismatic Ending. But this is a 12 creature deck, and I don't really know that that makes a ton of sense. So I think this is sketch, and I'm also not overly sold on this. This is just a way to get another land into hand that costs 2 mana. I don't think I am on board with that either. As far as the sideboard goes, since we have tutors, Derek has gone for kind of silver bullet creatures as the primary thing that is taking up sideboard space here. Now, here are my predictions going into this league, and we'll see whether or not I'm on target. Prediction 1 is that this deck cannot function without Tifa, and accordingly, in the slots where Aether Vial is, there should just be some other creature that has either landfall synergy or pump spell synergy. So, for example, we could put a 1 of Glistener Elf in this deck and have that as a green sun target, and then when we have a handful of pump spells, we have the ability to turn that into lethal. So that is kind of one of the biggest things that I'm predicting here. And prediction 2, I don't interact with my opponent. There's not removal spells here. There's not basically anything in the main deck that does anything other than defend Tifa. So we can give ourselves Shroud and Hexproof and protection from colors to force Tifa through and protect Tifa. But we are a one-trick pony. And if that one trick isn't really, really good, we don't really have a plan B. So I imagine that we are going to run into some scenarios where what we're doing isn't good enough without interacting with our opponent to slow them down. So, for example, on an Aether Vial based line, you play Vial on turn 1, you tick it up on turn 2, you tick it up to 2 on turn 3. An Aether Vial based line is a Tifa attacking on turn 4, a turn 4 where we have not interacted with our opponent at all. I think a lot of modern decks will have won by then. So this is kind of where my head's at going into the league. I think we are going to have some disgusting goldfishes. I think when our opponent does not interact with us or our protection works, we're going to relatively consistently kill on turn 3. But I think once something goes wrong or our opponent presents their own, say, combo kill, I don't think we have anything to stop it. So we'll see how this plays out overall. Folks, if you need your Tifas or your traveling chocobos or anything else to make this deck work, please consider getting them from my sponsor, toamagic.com, to support my content. Promo code ThrabenU save you 5% on your order, and you always get free fast shipping. All right, let's battle. Okay, I think I am fine with this. Is Green Sun a Dryad Arbor? Or is Green Sun a Tifa? This seems smaller than normal. Urza's Saga. And a Pithing Needle. Just naming a fetch land. Wrong fetch land, luckily. I'm definitely fetching a Temple Garden. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and get the Dryad Arbor here. This way, if I do end up drawing another Green Sun, I can get a Tifa into play the next turn. Oh, or we could just draw a Tifa now, which is cool. I think I'm going to go ahead and play a Tifa and then leave up one of these two spells. Preferably, I don't fetch, in which case I probably kill next turn. All sorts of stuff can happen here. Off Urza's Saga, including something like a Colossus Hammer coming down and just being able to kill me outright. Oh yeah, please attack me with that other construct token as well. That's totally fine. I think I only need 2 points of life to get a kill. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, we will just take that. I'm at 4. Alright, so neither one of these is a sorcery, which means I can go bam, landfall, kick this on Tifa. There's my protection. Fetch. Why don't we go ahead and make... I guess I'm not getting royal treatment as well, right? Oh, it's only when this is untapped? This land sucks. Fetch. Do a Lush Portico. Get rid of that land. 5 to 10 to 20 to 40. And that kills through even both of those being left over. Yeah, this requires 3 or more planes for that +1/+1 counter. Absolutely not, Derek. This is not happening. No way. At least not regularly. All right, we've got a Collector Oof here. We'll make that substitution. I don't know how much and what removal my opponent is playing, but I imagine there's some things in there that get rid of creatures. I might just already have enough protection with Giver and the various green things. File's a little weird alongside Collector Oof, but I would like maybe bring in other spell skites otherwise, and that's also weird with Collector Oof, so we'll call this good. This is probably fine on average. Leyline Axe, sure. Silent Clearing, Esper Sentinel, you've got it. I think I am giving my opponent a card here to put Dryad Arbor into play. If I put the Dryad Arbor into play, I can potentially carry over a fetch land into my turn 3 without cracking it, and make it easier to goldfish. There's an Ink Moth. There's a Stoneforge. And there's a Hammer. So that is a potential +12/+12 coming. I'm not blocking that. 16. Spellskite is neat, but I think I just need to attempt to goldfish my opponent here, because this plus an Inkmoth Nexus is just a bad time for me. Another land. There's a Hammer in play. 10, 11, 12. Not dead if this somehow gets equipped. Yeah, you got it. Oh, attach any number of target equipment. Double Strike's real bad. Vines versus a counterspell here. Take some damage. Does mean the remainder of my hand is poop. So that's going to make my opponent draw a card, unfortunately. And I only end up taking 2 here. So let's go ahead and play a Chocobo. That is a green sun on top, so I only get to play lands and bird spells, so this is not what I'm looking for. But I do get to double Tifa's power twice, but without a pump spell here, that's not overly impressive. Oh, fuck, I fucking forgot about that. I should not have cast that spell. The Aether Vial just does nothing. That was poor on my end. I think this one was over when I had to use Vines defensively anyway. I think there's just too great of a chance that my opponent has another way to equip here. Presumably this is the same trick as last time. So if you got it, you got it. They got it. I am dead. I think I'm fine playing the Traveling Chocobo on that turn and trying to hit the fetch land on top. I believe the fetch land on top just kills there. I don't know if I should board in more Spellskite. Again, Spellskite, Collector Oof, awkwardness. So if I keep this hand, I don't have 3 lands to Green Sun for Collector Oof or Tifa. My Aether Vial is not really doing anything meaningful. I think I just mulligan this one. I think Tifa on turn 2 is way better than Tifa on turn 3. I'm considering mulliganing this under the same principle. Yeah. I have to get less picky, I think, when it comes to 5. There we go. Get rid of that. Then I think I'm going to keep the thing that increases Tifa's power over the protection here on 5 cards. We'll just drop a Marsh Flats and pass the turn. Esper Sentinel, sure. I'll go ahead and surveil here. No. I'd like to find another pump spell. Found another Tifa instead. Sure. We'll drop Tifa. So I can have Tifa be at 2 power and then double that twice. That's fine. I really need another pump spell here. There's a hammer. That's bad. So I'm going to get clocked for 11 here, and I am dead the following turn. Not only that, I'm going to have to kill through an 11 toughness blocker. I don't think that's happening. Oh, opponent did not even attack. Okay. So, Giver can punch through next turn. I think I'm going to put this in play. It's very awkward. But I think I am hoping to hit another land drop. Preferably another fetch land, and then we start doubling the doubling, and I'm probably good from there. Okay, that's bad. That cantrips. And my opponent gets a double strike on that. We'll throw Giver of Runes in the way. Good job, Giver of Runes. 16, and then the double strike damage with trample goes through and kills me. Just for giggles. The top card is a Marsh Flat, so how does that math out? So I've got 2 to 4 to 8 to 16. Not lethal, certainly not lethal through a giant blocker. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by moxfield.com. If you're looking to store your decks online, you're not going to find a better website. It's super organized and easy to use, and I sort everything that I do into a ton of format-specific folders, and you can customize the way that you use Moxfield to your liking. Whether you like text views or visual views of multiple different natures, Moxfield has it all. And it's so easy to use, you might even say that it's a snap. This is incredibly awkward. I want to play a Tifa on turn 2. I can't play Aether Vial on turn 1 because of this land. I think I still keep it anyway and hope to Goldfish, but this is a 4-card hand. I think this deck is just going to perform so much better on average when Tifa is immediately available. Does this combination of things make it so that I don't try to go as quickly as possible? It might. Try to settle in for a slightly longer game, which I don't want to do with this deck, I don't think. But if this ends up being a more controlling deck, I might just need to. Oh, it might just be Boros Energy instead. In which case, I wish that I just had the ability to play Tifa next turn. Not Boros Energy. Still control. Alright. I don't want all these Aether Vials, but I sure am getting them. There's a Felia, which makes my already bad Aether Vials worse. Third Mesa comes down. Yeah, 15. Then my vial comes back. Pick both up to 1. Is this just a spell that I use once I have a Tifa in play? That might just be a spell that I use once I already have a Tifa in play. This sucks. This is so bad. Seems like my opponent had a counterspell and they were just like, what's the point? Imagine we'll now get a Surveil land. We do Ragavan to Yard. And a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Opponent might end up just blinking that for value rather than going after my vials. Shocking in Sacred Foundry. Yeah, opponent is just taking their value. Got it. I'm getting attacked for roughly half my life total next turn. Not great. Now we start getting into the do I play the land or not situations. I think not. Opponent can loot. My opponent has dealt enough damage to themselves that I don't actually need to hit them hyper hard. That's a Riddler. My opponent can draw a card there. How much am I taking? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I think that just is going to happen. I could try to get cute with Spellskite. I just don't really know that that's correct to do. At 6. End of turn. Quantum Riddler is going to end up coming back, giving my opponent 1 more card. We'll go ahead and activate here. Say yes, and put in a Tifa. And I think I just untap with the ability to vial in Spellskite. So we're going to put all 3 of these at 2. The only thing that is a sorcery here is Green Sun. That doesn't have to happen first. Yeah, that doesn't have to happen first. So it is my main phase. Double this, make it big. I might not even play Green Sun anymore. Another lightning bolt to my face will kill me. That's a thing. Because I don't think I have a basic forest in this deck. Yeah, I don't. Okay. So I will Might of Old Krosa again, and I still have the ability to activate a Spellskite once. So double that to 10. 3 damage marked on Tifa. Then this becomes 14, which becomes 28, which is enough to still kill through a Riddler. Yeah. Ephemerate on Quantum Riddler. Sure. You can draw your card. There's a Solitude. You may target Tifa. Then I'll activate this. Say yes. Put in a Spellskite. Change the target of that ability to Spellskite. Then Evoke happens. And hopefully Tifa just runs over for lethal. Hey, 22 damage to face. I don't believe we won that game with how bad our hand was. Big yikes. We need to keep Consign on our radar, because that can super mess up the Tifa math. I'm into these other Spellskites, I guess. The Indestructible only stops some pieces of removal. Voice of Victory is cool. I could just play a pile of pro-red creatures that say, hey, deal with this. I'm not the most enthused about that. I'm gonna board this out every round. Then it's trickier. Assume that the game slows down a little bit. Can't really cut too many pump spells and still do my thing. I think it's valid to potentially cut all of the Aether Vials and just board in these cards. What if I do this? What if I get rid of the tutors for Tifa and just play some things that are a little sticky and require my opponent to have white removal? That's reasonable. We just gear up for a longer game. I'll say no to this without a second land. This is unimpressive. I think I'm still going to keep it and keep card quantity. I really need 3 lands for this deck to function well. So I can take the first turn off to Surveil and then do one of Core Firewalker or Spellskite and hope that we draw into some reasonable things to continue bridging the game. Opponent has their next land drop and is just passing. Fetch. Surveil. Yes. So I'm playing one of these spells just directly into a counterspell here. I think I will choose Core Firewalker under the assumption that Sanctifier Invec is just better later on. There's the fetch. No, opponent is playing Felia instead. That's a Quantum Riddler, unfortunately. So now my opponent can get Quantum Riddler at the cost of their Felia, which I think is well worth it. They'll blink Riddler, and I'll 100% block here. Can't let Felia keep doing Felia things. But my opponent has already drawn 2 cards off of Quantum Riddler, so like they're in very, very, very good shape already. Seems good. Let's maybe throw down a Spellskite now. We'll potentially eat a Consign. I'm trying to exhaust opponent's resources, draw a Tifa, win in one go. That's my conceptual game plan. Opponent has something to say about it, though. There is the Consign. Arena of Glory comes down. There's a dashed Ragavan. That's just happening. I'm eating 6 damage here, unfortunately. Traveling Chocobo in exile. I don't think I like my opponent playing a bunch of extra lands off the top. They might just have better things to do by holding open mana, though. I don't know their hand. They are going to play it. No bonus land immediately. I'm going to leave this in play. It represents damage later. But I am just like basically dead next turn to a lightning bolt. Don't think I get to do any protection here. This is just Tifa, no protection, hope for the best. Dead to everything. Dead to literal everything. A removal spell on Tifa, a lightning bolt to face, a Flage, Hollowed Fountain, a Hasty Solitude. Oh, it's Wrath of the Skies, and then Haste for a Ragavan. 4, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, okay. That'll do. Got our butts kicked. I could play something like this, but it's very awkward to just say, okay, you get your Flage, okay, you get your Quantum Riddler. I can shut off the triggers, but the bodies being around is still pretty darn bad. I'm going to try running this again. I'm not entirely convinced that this sideboard juke is good. This hand has 0 land. We're going to have to mulligan that. This is not great. Don't have a Tifa, don't have a way to find a Tifa, don't have more than 1 threat. I think this is a mulligan as well. Rough. On 5, we might be hope for the best territory at this stage. Ugh. I hate this. Well, my opponent also has bad hands, but I think their bad hands are way better than my hands because they have Felia and Ragavan and Fable. They have so many value-oriented permanents, whereas I don't have a plan. Like, my plan is essentially draw well. When it has their land drop, passes the turn, say yes. Reasonable. In the Magical Christmas Land world, I draw Tifa next turn, file in Tifa, and cast Spellskite this turn. I think I'm going to opt to Surveil Land instead, and not cast either one of these spells. If I tick if I tick Aether Vial up to 3 for Traveling Chocobo, I then can't use it to put in a Tifa if I draw one, so I have to cast a Tifa. That's awkward. There's also timelines where I try to save my Surveil land until this is in play to double Surveil, but it might just be so important to try to fix the early game that I shouldn't do that. 17, and we're chilling. I think I am officially at Vile Pump Fakes level of desperate to see if we bait out a Consign at any point. Fetch, Surveil, Vines. I can try to use that to protect these, but these aren't winning the game. I think I'm going to try to find something that does win the game. File up to 2. All right. I will pass the turn. There's a Quantum Riddler. So, okay, it is gone. That's nice. Say yes. There's a Spellskite. Yes. I think I am putting this into play, filing this in, saying yes, putting in the Traveling Chocobo, hit a land drop from the top of library, and I'll want to shuffle that away. I'll pass turn here. And my plan might just be fetch Idyllic Grange and put 2 +1/+1 counters on something, potentially saving it from a lightning bolt effect. Opponent going down to 14. So there's a Solitude. Just getting rid of the Spellskite. That is what it is. Please don't evoke that, or rather ephemerate it. Okay, cool. There's a lightning bolt on the traveling chocobo. Let's go always yes to that, always yield to that. Then fetch, trigger, double +1/+1 counters. Make that survive the lightning bolt. I really wanted these to go here since this creature is stickier, but I don't think I can give up saving the traveling chocobo. So, Giver of Runes. Alright. Sending in. Elia is a thing. Not immediately. Wrath of the Skies is a thing. I'm ignoring that. And I think I probably don't want the Spellskate that is currently on top of my library. There's a Flage. I imagine it's going to kill my Giver of Runes. Yes. That's a consign. That's not great. Probably can't kill my opponent from 10 life next turn. Let's fetch, clear the top. That was not a green fetch, so I can't get a Dryad Arbor here. The tapped Temple Garden. Royal Treatment. I don't have any ability to manipulate my library more. There's the Tifa. Again, Aether Vial Awkwardness. And you're a bird, but you don't actually fly. Awkward. I'm also not representing lethal next turn if I fog a Flage trigger with Royal Treatment. There's the Quantum Riddler coming back down. Opponent has 1 card, so this is now a draw 2. So I'm going to take 6. My pro-red creature can block this. Not giving up Traveling Chocobo. The dream is still kill with Tifa. It's a multi-turn sequence where I put in Tifa, Royal Treatment Tifa to save her from a Flage trigger. My opponent does not have any follow-up, and then I have lands on top. I can queue that up, play Tifa. I need Traveling Chocobo, I imagine. Imagine that I need Traveling Chocobo. So I have 2 lands in my deck that are fetchable. I have a Dryad Arbor, which this doesn't fetch, and the basic plains. I guess there's timelines where I don't play this land immediately, and I wait. Better for me if the card under Sanctifier in Vec is a land. Worse for me if it is not. Arena of Glory could be spooky. The opponent is chilling. There's a post-combat Ragavan. Sure. We're going to go ahead and do a Vile Pump Fake here. Consign is real right now. So I can Royal Treatment to fetch to 4 to 8. My opponent is not comfortable attacking right now. I can do this with another layer of protection if I wait another turn cycle. And I would really like my opponent to make the first move so that I don't start going for it and then get super messed up. Yeah, let's wait. There's Felia. Okay. That's happening. That's a draw 2. An opponent can just repeat that again to draw 2 more cards. And they are going to. I now have to attempt to kill through so much toughness if my opponent holds back. Yikes. That seems like that does it. The only thing I get here is Traveling Chocobo versus 2 onboard cards, 3 cards in hand. And this is gaining my opponent life, so it's not like I can just Traveling Chocobo chonk in there and finish my opponent off. I'm going to take a look at my top card, and then my card under this, and then in fact I am conceding. Yeah, it's just another land. All right, we were pretty close there, but we came up short. Again, I don't have any removal, so once my opponent cheats something like these into play, they just exist forever. GG's. Okay, so I can play a turn 3 Tifa with this hand and have landfall with no pump. I won't be able to float a fetch land into that turn as of right now. If I want to use Lush Portico, I give up on getting another land. I think this hand is bad. I'm going to keep it for science. Let's see if I am evaluating these wrong. I just think any hand that has Tifa and has the potential to kill on turn 3 is just so much stronger than anyone threatening to kill on turn 4. Meticulous Archive. Keeping the card. Well, I guess that gives me something to do with my mana this turn if I play Lush Portico. No, don't want that. Got that covered already, assuming my spell resolves. Once this is active, these two can defend each other. Giver does not protect itself, which means we just crash in here. 19. That is a solitude. I don't believe there is any reason to do that with this timing. I also don't believe there's any reason to hit this Giver of Runes over that one, which dealt you a point of damage. Womp. And an Emperor of Bones. Sure. You can eat a card out of my graveyard. Aether Vial is a pretty terrible draw here. I've not succeeded in drawing a pump spell yet. There's Green Sun. Yep. Alright, I suspect we are dead. So opponents got their land drop. They're now putting Solitude under Emperor of Bones for later. For now. Going super aggro. I eat 7 damage. Oh, do we have an Ephemerate too? 19. Yep. I can keep their Solitude around. Not great. At this point, I'm not literally dead, but I think I am effectively dead. We can move on to the next game. We can do Sanctifier in Vec for some graveyard stuff. Shutting off something like the Atraxa ability might be important enough that I do something like this, despite the awkwardness of my opponent then being able to play a 0-mana 3/2 flash lifelinker. And I'll consider Voice of Victory. That's going out. Got a couple of ground swells. Then it gets trickier. I can go down some Aether Vials. I am boarding up on creatures. Feel awkward here. Maybe I'm overboarding and I should keep 2 Givers and not play the Doorkeepers or something. This is not enough mana to be functional, I think, even with Dryad Arbor. So I think what happens is I play Dryad Arbor gets removed, and then I don't play Magic. I think I'll mulligan. This one I'll keep. Pitching one of the vials. I'll fetch. Drop to 17. Play Vial and pass. Opponent's on 6 cards. That helps a little bit. Another thing that I am starting to kind of realize here is that these spells are pretty close to dead unless I have a Tifa. Just buffing up any other creature does not have the same impact. Again, like the Glistener Elf thing I said earlier in this video. Next land drop. Going to 16. That's a Psychic Frog. And again, that's just there all game. I can't remove creatures. File goes up. Make a land drop. And pass the turn. I can't even really ambush this well with Sanctifier in Vec due to flying being a concern. Activate Vial. Yes. There's Sanctifier in Vec. There's not anything in the graveyard for me to actually remove here. That is a Solitude on Giver of Runes. I think I am interested in attempting to say no to that. That's an Ephemerate. Now they're trying to remove Sanctifier in Vec, which I just blank with a Giver activation? That doesn't make sense. You may absolutely surgical extraction me in response. For a white. So that's countered. That's countered. Opponent gets around the Evoke. 2 cards in graveyard currently. I will block Psychic Frog. My opponent discards some card that I've never seen before. This is a fake Spider-Man card. Okay. So my read on that situation was that my opponent mind rotted themselves. Let's surveil and just try to find a Tifa. Hey, it's a Tifa. I will go ahead and chill here. My opponent can now Ephemerate the Solitude, and they should point this at Giver. There's the ward. They pay. Now I'll give pro white so Solitude can't attack. Giver goes away. There's flying on Psychic Frog. Nothing I can do about that. And Solitude couldn't attack anyway, by the way, because of Summoning Sickness. Activate. Yes. There's Tifa. Play Might of Old Krosa. 5 power. Green Sun for Dryad Arbor. 10 power. Probably worth doing. Yeah. There's Dryad Arbor. Double trigger on the stack. Let's pump up Tifa. There's 10. Send in with Tifa. Opponent goes to 6. Opponent getting a +1/+1 counter. They're not going to get enough cards to fly now. Both creatures are coming in. I think I just block the frog. Don't let them draw the card. All right. There's a Might of Old Krosa. There's a double on the power. All right, and we do swing lethal there. I think my opponent hemorrhaged resources, and it was still tough for me to win. I don't think my deck is as powerful as what they are doing, and they haven't even just dumped an Atraxa into play yet, but just Psychic Frogs and Solitude Ephemerates are eating me alive. Do I want more Spellskites or more Givers? Giver not protecting itself is such a big deal versus Solitude. And I guess the same is true of Spellskite, right? Like if they have the Spellskite if they have Solitude Ephemerate, they just target the Spellskite, let that trigger resolve, and then they ephemerate. And my protection is not actually protection, which is frustrating. Is I guess fine. Yikes, the basic planes strikes. Still thinking about keeping this hand. Still think I'm going to keep this one. This is like a disaster if it goes wrong. I think 2 Aether Vials makes this reasonable. Nice. Let's start out here still. Sure. Just a Surveil. That's fine. Opponent says no to Wrath of the Skies after I started on Aether Vial. Okay, they're going to Force of Negation. Sure. There's a Surveil land. Keeping the card. That's interesting. Now got extremely difficult to play. I don't know that I want to prolong the game so long as for like Aether Vial to be good. I think my plan is going to be play a Tifa, hope that my opponent does not have Solitude plus Ephemerate right now, and then be able to hold this up on following turns. Okay, opponent does not have more mana. Cool for me. Basic Plains is kicking my butt. I think I'm just attacking for 1 here. Send it. And I'm going to pass the turn. Faithful Mending. Sure. Atraxa and Grizzlebrand to yard. How bad is it? Tap out to play this? Probably pretty bad. Orio's being an instant is so rough. Alright. Oh. Just choked on mana. Yeah. That's a bunch of good stuff. Possible that when my opponent cast Faithful Mending after that while they were still tapped out, I should have played my Doorkeeper Thrall. Got Solitude to Fairy and Prismatic Ending to be thinking about. Not great. Okay. I think I can probably assume that that beats me from here, even if my opponent makes some mistakes. GG's. Okay, opening hand does not have lands. It has Aether Vial, but like Aether Vial with 1 creature, I don't think is cutting it here. We're going to go ahead and mulligan. This is gonna need a little love off the top of the deck, but hopefully it pans out. The only way that I play a Tifa on turn 2 as of right now is by playing Lush Portico. We want to find a land here so that on turn 3 I can be representing a pretty easy kill. I would like to not use... fuck. Well, maybe opponent doesn't respect Tifa. Awkward. We're going in. I think the clock is ticking on how good my deck is going to be. On how long my deck is going to be good for here. There's Urza Saga. Just tap out. Okay. What is this? Whenever a non-token artifact you control enters... I need to read this. Create a colorless artifact token named Munitions with. When this leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. Okay. So I can't go all in this turn because of Mox Opal. That sucks. I guess we're playing Protection, swinging in for 1. That's not what we want to be doing. And now I have to kill through 1 or more giant Urza Saga Construct tokens. And presumably my opponent has ways to... No, we're not having this leave play. Anyway, my opponent probably has ways to sacrifice these munitions if they're playing them, right? So presumably all of my things are going to get gunned down here. Thoughtcast. Ormod's Crypt. Sink into Stupor. With no ability to pay for ward. That's cool for me. It would be so great if I draw a land and just get to kill my opponent for that. No. don't have mana to kick this and then double. So I think what I'm going to do instead is ward this up real good. Oh, can I not have more than one roll? Hate that. We'll get a Dryad Arbor. All right, opponent, you did something stupid. I did something stupid to keep it fair. Opponent's down to 12. I still have a bit of protection for Tifa. I can go pro-colorless to get through the construct token. That's not really a problem. The problem is if my opponent gets something that can start sacrificing these munitions. Is a Shadow Spear. All right, that's a problem. What about land, though? Oh, now it can be a lifelinker immediately, and I have to deal 20 damage. Well, I guess Giver still is fine there. Sure. All right, land. No. Ugh. This is... I need to tap this the other way. This is shameful. All right. I can go Traveling Chocobo and hope to get lucky, or I can do the Vine Wall. The Vine Wall is probably more consistent. Saga ticks up. EE for 0. Triggers this. Would love it if you blew an EE for 0. Opponent swings in. Go pro-colorless. Oh my god, that makes the roll fall off. Alright. My opponent is blowing an EE for 0. Oh, I see. For the munitions. Alright, well, I'm dead to that. Creatures and artifacts entering doesn't cause abilities to trigger. Okay. And this. So, bam. Bam, bam. Could also think about the White Orchid Phantom for Urza Saga. Could also think about Gaddock Teague for X-cost things. I think I am just trying to goldfish my opponent, which is not working well. This is, I guess, fine. Aether Vial doesn't do anything this game, at least to my goldfish. We'll play it anyway, but this is, in theory, killing on turn 3. Oh yeah, that's fine. This card was not doing anything anyway. Deal. Let's tick that up anyway. Batch. Temple Garden. Yes. And Tifa. Saga goes up. Please don't have blue? Okay, there's Pinnacle Emissary. So sometimes my opponent does not have mana to use Spell Bomb. Not this timeline. Alright. I have to actually use Royal Treatment as protection here. So there's Might of Old Krosa. I fucked this up. I now can't do this fetch. Because if I do the fetch, my opponent's bombs under front. I needed to put both fetch triggers onto the stack. Or maybe I don't want to do that. Send in. Yeah, you get priority back. You bouncing? Nope. Yeah, I played that turn wrong. Needed both fetches on the stack. And then I always have the green available for Royal Treatment, and I get the other double. My opponent could be dead here. Springleaf Drum. I will fetch in response. There's Temple Garden. Say yes. Do Royal Treatment. Rough. This gets bounced out of play. I'll go down to 13. My opponent's got one card. Maybe I just exhaust their resources. Play out a new Tifa. Not going to play this land. Land drop from my opponent. There's the Pinnacle Emissary coming back. An opponent is crashing in for some chip damage, which is fine. Bellskite. I guess that happens. And we go bam. Trigger on the stack. Fetch this thingy. Trigger on the stack. +1/+1 counter there. There's 2 to 4 to 8. To Dryad Arbor, 16, and we put up a game win there. Yeah, I just have no ability to interact with anything here. So I can, I can Green Sun for a Collector Oof. I can't sweep these tokens or anything like that. I guess I'll keep. I think my opponent has so many, Pinnacle Emissary starts that are just so much quicker than what my deck can do. Let's Surveil. I'll take a Green Sun. Just so slow to turn 3 Collector Oof when my opponent is on the play. 16. Pithing Needle, sure. Aiming Aether Vial, which is fine by me. think I am just passing the turn and going for this at end of my opponent's turn. Yeah. Mod's Crypt is fine. Mox Opal is fine. Kappa? That's a Thought Monitor. I think while that's on the stack, I'm going to cast this. I think I do want to deal the damage to myself. I have a ton of green cards in hand. There's Tifa. I think it's possible that I just need to be prepared to cast 4 green pips worth of stuff in one turn. So down to 15. There's Tifa with protection available. Emissary, sure. Honest to goodness Memnite. Hello, friend. It's been a hot minute. Drawing a card. Playing a Tormod's Crypt. Mox Opal. Sure. 2 cards remaining. Let's see if we can get a kill. Yeah. Fetch. Yeah. Shock. Kick on Tifa. That's fine. One has 1 card left. Kick on Tifa. That can get countered. 5 to 10 to 20 with Shroud. Oof, alright. This has been tough, but we do have a match win on the board now. Not going home without at least 1 win. Let's see if we can get some of our play points back next round. GG's. Okay, opening hand has 4 pump spells and no ability to get a Tifa into play. With the amount of land that I have, we'll mulligan this one. Second hand is fine. I'm going to keep this. I think this is a turn 1 Dryad Arbor. So we'll shock all Dryad Arbor. And my goal in doing this is to be able to maybe carry a land over into a future turn, or potentially bait a removal spell. Alright. No Ephemerate for it is good for me, I guess. Very glad that hit Solitude rather than Tifa. I'm going to play out Tifa here. There's a fetch. Meticulous Archive. Probably more Quantum Riddler nonsense. Sacred Foundry. And Thunder Trap Trainer. Sure. Getting Wrath of the Skies. Uh-oh. Very awkward to play a Giver into Wrath of the Skies, huh? Well, here's to hoping no Solitude, right? So, yeah. 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 Kick. So there's 5 to 10 to 20 with Trample. And that's still enough to get the job done. Okay, we die this game, I think, if my opponent Solitudes the Tifa, but they took Dryad Arbor out instead in a very aggressive line. We are not going to get that degree of grace a second time. So I have some defensive options. I could do this to try to stop my opponent's triggers on their wizards and solitudes. I could do this for Wrath of the Skies, although that seems kind of sketchy. And then alternatively, there's also the, like, hey, what if I just play a bunch of pro-red guys that dodge removal spells, like presumably Flame of Honor? You're going out. You're going out. I think I'm going to get rid of these and become more threat dense. That would be 7 total cards if I do all of this, which could be these 6 plus 1 of these 4 cards. I could also do Voice of Victory instead of Aether Vial, which I kind of like. I'm not really sure that this card is great. I am trying to be the beatdown here, and this is a card that is not very good at doing that. Taking an entire turn off is rough. So we do something that looks like this. Is this a 2-power creature? This is a 1-power creature. That? Sure. And I think I'm just playing an awkward aggro deck here. This is fine. Wow, opponent is going to 5 very, very quickly. We'll take it. I think I am still into that being Dryad Arbor. My opponent valued removing it last time. Plus, if I get Green Sun out of my hand, I can play Teague without really needing to worry. I think I'm going to Spellskite here. Good enough for a fetch. And a shock. And a snare. Sure. I think this is a Surveil land. I think we're not optimizing for a Tifa one-shot here. I think I'm trying to exhaust resources. I'm not 100% sure. Fetch, surveil. I'll say no to the extra land. Well, I mean, yeah, that's fine. Make the land drop, and we'll just leave this chilling in play. Got royal treatment as a protection from a targeted removal spell. See what my opponent is doing. Surveilling again. Keeping a card. We don't want to see something like Supreme Verdict or Wrath of the Skies that can just get around Tifa. Prismatic Ending. Royal treatment for hexproof. Very nice. I'm going to imagine that this means that my opponent dies. So, land drop, in response, fetch, get a plains, trigger on the stack, fetch, get this, Tifa trigger on the bottom, this on Tifa. So that's 3 to 6 to 12 to 24. Send it. Gotta be Solitude. It is Solitude, because that's the only way my opponent can do the Ward 1 thing. So my opponent did this in a way that is going to allow me to gain 24 life, though, which seems real. Opponent takes 1 in combat. Then there's a Gaddock Teague and a Sanctifier Invec. I've just got a 3-turn clock in turning these creatures sideways, and hopefully my opponent doesn't have, like, land Wrath of the Skies to just take out all my cool stuff at once. I don't want to be seeing extra land drops here. Send in. There's 9. I already have my Dryad Arbor in play. I guess Wrath of the Skies is not currently on with Gaddock Teague around. Supreme Verdict then. That's very bad. That takes out Gaddock Teague. Goodbye. Gives my opponent more life, time to catch up, although the Flage does go to exile. I want this just as 4 damage right now. Yeah, I think I'll get While the Getting is good. Hit for 7. Opponent is at 5. Alright. I do not want these extra land drops here. This is quite bad for me. Yeah. Like, I know I am very close to the finish line here, but this is surprisingly close to going south. Do we get there? We do get there. So that is a 2-3 finish in this league. But I will say, I believe all of our losses were 1-2s. So we were always in there. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Derek, honestly, I think you're close to something. And I'm going to shift the sideboard off screen for a minute. I don't think Aether Vial is better than Mana Dorks here. Mana Dorks do 2 things. Number 1, they accelerate you into Tifa and Eladamri's Call and Traveling Chocobo and Green Sun as well, honestly. And number 2, they draw removal. And if people use removal on your, like, say you're playing an Exalted creature or a Bird of Paradise or a Delighted Halfling or whatever, and that removal is not going at your Tifa, I think that's a success. So I know you are trying to play around sorcery speed removal. I think it is more important to just have more things that your opponents need to or want to remove. I would probably junk Aether Vial. And number 2, I would try to get a few more threats into the deck so that it's not Tifa or bust. Because Tifa is incredibly powerful. Like, obviously, you know, we hit for north of 40 a couple of times. So I wonder if you can go and do something with these 7 slots and maybe the main deck Spellskite and get like 4 Mana Dorks, 4 more threats in here. It's conceptually hard to take a turn off to play a Spellskite when you really need to be using your mana to do the Tifa thing. And if you're trying to like wait for multiple different Aether Vial activations before you go in, I don't know that you survive long enough versus whatever your opponents are doing. Because again, we have no removal, we have no counter spells, we have no discard. So we just need to be faster than our opponent. And Aether Vial does not feel like it's being faster than the opponent. Certainly a little bit of pilot error on my side, and I'm not the most familiar with Modern, so like I'm sure there were ways to optimize the play. The power level seems close. Another thing you could do with these 8 slots is like play 4 to 8 things that interact with your opponent in some way and buy time to set up the big Tifa turn. I'm not sure how I feel about the sideboard. Like, it is a pile of reasonable cards that I was able to board in. I just don't know how I feel about it in the grand scheme of things. Like, these are fine cards that I can certainly board in. Would I take a turn off to tutor for a lot of these? I think the answer is no. I think the format is fast enough, and I don't play a lot of modern, so take this with a grain of salt, but I think the format is fast enough that you just need to play cards when you have them. I don't know how much I am in love with this. And maybe if the deck becomes less all in on Tifa, and you get some other landfall creatures in here, or you get some infect creatures in here, bristly bills, scythe cat cubs, you get some other things that just allow you to play reasonable Magic without having Tifa. Maybe you can make the sideboard harder hitting non-creature spells. Derek, hopefully this gives you a lot to think about. I think your deck is cool. I think it is relatively good at doing things with protection, but I think there is some finessing to be done here. All right, with that, I hope you all enjoyed. If you have any thoughts for Derek, leave them down in the comments below, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!